You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Shelby, Executive Director of Texas Humane Legislation Network. Welcome, Shelby.
Good morning.
Thanks for being back on the podcast. I wanted to have you back to discuss how the new law is going in Texas.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Polly. The new law, the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, is really doing quite well. Actually better than expected. So it went into effect on January 18th, 2022, and Texas dogs and their communities where they reside, they deserved a common sense balanced policy governing the restraint of dogs outside. And so we knew that the effective date was January 18th, and we truly prepared our communities to get ready for its inception. And what does that mean? If you go to THLN.org, we have 3 different flyers in English and Spanish so that we could educate our entire state on what the new law does. So one flyer says what the act does. Another flyer says how to properly restrain your dog outdoors. And then the last flyer has key exceptions. And of course, Polly, they're all in pictures because it's like paint by number so everybody can understand.
Sure. And what have you found? It's just so interesting that people treat their dogs like that. So have you found that people are starting to learn that they have to take care of the animal?
Absolutely. We have overwhelming support from our law enforcement and animal control officers because now this gives them a tool to go and speak with individuals that leave their dogs outside restrained, without a doghouse, so they can educate them on what their dogs need. And as you know, this was the most contentious Texas legislative session, right? This was a 6-year quest for us to pass this legislation. But now what we found is that communities are truly coming together to bring their citizens into the law. In addition to that, especially some of our underserved communities. And it's really exciting. We have, if I can tell you about some of our programs. So
for sure.
We were reached out to by a high school in Marble Falls, Texas, and they have a shop class there. And they now have implemented a program where they are making dog houses for their local shelter.
Love it.
We have a bar association of attorneys in South Texas. And one of their main projects is a contest, and they're all building dog houses. Hundreds of attorneys are building dog houses for their local community. And so we really have seen a groundswell of support. And to get back to your original question, Polly, this is great because not only are people realizing that maybe the way they were treating their dog wasn't right, but in addition to that, you have communities coming together that are actually banning tethering altogether.
Oh,
For
good.
example, the city of Lufkin in East Texas, they had some real conversations between their city manager and the animal control officers, and they decided to ban it altogether. So truly, this is really starting a new conversation. And as we like to say, it really is a new day for Texas dogs.
That's awesome. That's so neat to hear about the schools getting behind it, because that's just more education as they get older and have pets of their own.
Absolutely. We have several people that have contacted us that are partnering with their local shelters to do fundraisers for cable tie-outs, because you can no longer use a chain with this law. And we even had a woman in East Texas. She co-hosted a neighborhood event. And what they did is they distributed free cable tie-outs. They went around their neighborhood, and when they saw a dog on a chain, they not only distributed a free cable tie-out, but they cut the chain off the dog. So truly, and they're also partnering up with local spay-neuter clinics or vaccine clinics. They're handing out vouchers for dog houses and or cable tie-out. So again, what I love about Texas is that we truly are coming together in our communities and helping some of our underserved communities and helping educate others.
And helping the pets.
Correct. We had one last story, Polly. This is great. We had a Eagle Scout that he's going to be an Eagle Scout. And part of his last mission is creating 40 dog houses for the local shelter where he lives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it really is affecting the spectrum of people and their pets.
So now that this is happening, are animal owners, once they're educated, realizing that they might not be good pet owners? And so are you having an influx of dogs being
returned?
Yeah.
No, we actually have not seen that. I will say this. Shelters in Texas are struggling horrifically right now. And it is really a combination of things. It is the fact that COVID really put a lot of restrictions on certain shelters, and they're trying to come out of that. In addition, there are some pay grade issues, right? And we all have heard about the Great Resignation, and shelters are really being affected by that, because you could go and work for your city and go work in code enforcement or go work in an office versus doing the hard work at a shelter, which is cleaning shelters. It's a lot of physical work. And shelters can be incredibly emotional places. In addition to that, in Texas, we're having a vet shortage. So it is very, very unfortunate that our shelters are struggling. But no, the last thing that we want people to do is relinquish their dogs as a result of this law. And truly, we haven't seen it. I have not heard of one case. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but we all know that shelters and the people that love animals and don't want animals ending up in shelters will do anything to keep a dog with their owner.
Right. I know that I've had other guests from rescue organizations that there was an influx when people started going back to work, and, better for the dog to be in a rescue facility where they can find a foster home versus being neglected at home.
Yeah. What we've tried to do is encourage people. If you have a home and you feel that your dog is best left outside, let's make that work as much as possible. And let's work with the owner and the pet to make sure. If you have a dog that jumps 6-foot fences, then maybe that's not the best fit. But if you have a dog that likes to be outside, it's been beautiful in Texas recently, and it has a doghouse and a humane or proper safe tether and has food, water, then, we're not, listen, there's no law against that. That actually is a great life for that dog.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that they're building dog houses. I mean, that's a whole new movement, especially as shop and home ec classes come back into motion. I think in the 90s that it kind of disappeared, and now there's kind of been a resurgence. So that's really neat.
Totally. I mean, Polly, we are so excited about these dog houses being built because, as you know, high school students now have so many service hours they need to do before they go to college, right? And we have seen some church groups that have taken on dog houses. We have seen some other groups that are mending fences. So they don't want to tether their dogs anymore. They want to fix a fence, right? So there's so many things that you can do to get young people and students involved in this movement. And whether it's your shop class building dog houses, whether it's your Eagle Scout program, whether it's your local community or church program, they are really excited about giving and donating back those houses again to those underserved communities that need it.
Well, what would be really neat is to have the shop class then give it to the art class and then have, nice painted dog houses for these, dogs. So
yeah,
anyway, that's super exciting. Well, that's really great that it's all coming together and all your hard work definitely paid off.
Yes, we have a long way to go, but this was a very sweet victory for Texas dogs and their owners.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and we look forward to checking back in a few months just to see how the progress is going.
Thank you so much, and thank you to your listeners for caring about this topic.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.